Hey everybody, it's Dwayne, developer evangelist at GitKraken. I'm here with a very special guest and open source contributor, Sean Dietrich. Sean, why don't you go ahead and tell the folks at home, a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. As Dwayne said, my name is Sean Dietrich. I work for a company called Kanopi Studios. We are an online agency helping people, but more importantly, I think the biggest thing to point out is I'm big into the open source community. I help co-maintain a local development tool called Docksal, as well as help massively in the Drupal community and any other projects I see floating around on the web.
And that's the big reason we're here today is to talk about open source, but specifically Docksal. Could you just give us a quick high level, what is Docksal?
Yeah, so the best way to explain it is that it's a local development tool. So many people are like, oh, well, I have used tools like MAMP and I've used tools like Lando and I've used other things. And they're very much similar. The great thing about Docksal and a lot of some other tools is that it helps managing your local development environment and reproducing it so that if you need to free up some space, you can get rid of it. It makes it so that if you switch from one computer to another, you can reproduce that environment. Additionally, it helps it so that if you work in teams, and a team of 1, 2, 10, 100, everybody else can make sure that they're using the same set of tools, the same sort of items across the board so that you're managing to mimic your production environment and catch bugs before they happen. The other thing is that I think the big thing that many of these tools are starting to use is some sort of container management system. So we build Docksal based off of Docker. And with that, it's able for us to quickly discard environments after we're done working on them. So no longer have that leftover mess of items on our machines from projects that we worked on from 3 years ago, let alone from 30 days ago on there, and we can quickly clean up and manage the space that we need for new things, new and exciting things.
Yeah, really managing the crufts of local development. That's
Yep.
one of the reasons I like it. One of the other reasons I really love Docksal, is my personal preference, is it's based on Bash.
Yeah, and that was one of the things is Bash was always the big thing that was quick and easy for us to start implementing. It was, most of all Mac machines and all Linux machines have Bash enabled. And now, most recently, most Windows machines are now coming with some sort of Bash subsystem that you can run the scripts in. So it becomes easy because it becomes a uniform language without having to install anything extra or new to get things running.
People can find this at docksal.io. We'll link to that, of course. What's the future hold for Docksal? Like, what's on the roadmap? What can people look forward to?
We're finding that many people are jumping from local development into things like virtual environments, virtual tools. So there's some stuff for us to think about there. I know recently there's a tool called Gitpod where we were recently doing an integration with that. I think next on, we're trying to figure out how do we get maybe Docksal working on code spaces to a very similar idea is rather it be on your local machine, it could be in a virtual environment. But the goal is really how do we get these tools to work in those environments? And really the end goal is regardless if you're in something like code spaces or you're on your local environment or you're on a tablet or a phone or you're able to manage to get some sort of environment up and running, they operate the same across the board. And that's the big thing is making sure you have a reproducible environment that goes regardless of what device you're using. As far as the actual roadmap, I think that's what we're trying to pivot toward because we need to become innovative in what we're doing. That's something I see on a roadmap. And then right now, maintenance. I mean, there's a big thing about Docker and how Docker Desktop recently switched from being I don't want to say recently, at the beginning of the year, really, they switched from more of a free model to now a paid tier model for corporations. So that becomes a little bit of a challenge for us because we really want people to be able to use it regardless of what tools and everything. So seeing other systems, other container-based solutions we can integrate with Docksal to be able to use instead of just maybe Docker in general.
Right on. Definitely seeing the trend toward more and more cloud development environments, cloud development tools out there. So it's really exciting to hear you're working with Gitpod and looking at code spaces closer. So we definitely see that, especially in the world where VS Code.dev is kind of taking over left and right. That's where we see a lot of people starting out now, not migrating to, but just starting their work there. It's just a really exciting trend to watch. Speaking of trends, what other big things in open source are you paying attention to right now? Is there any other projects you think are really exciting that you wish more people knew about?
I am a huge, sort of one of my main loves is the Drupal project. I'm definitely believe in extending that and expanding that as much as possible. Anything from, I think the biggest thing is getting people involved in some way, shape, or manner. Coming from that realm, it's nice that you don't have to be a developer. You don't have to be a somebody who can code. It helps updating documentation. And I think that's one of my biggest passions is being able to push people to that project so that, hey, in some way, shape, or form, we can expand it and make it better. I think WordPress is also sort of a new one on my road, helping figure out, how can we get things contributed? How can we help in that space? How can we expand it and become more active in that environment? So that seems to be another one sort of on my list. I would say there's not one specific besides Drupal and WordPress that I would point out, but I think the best advice I have is if go to GitHub, look at the explore section, and then just like look at different projects that might be trending or might seem interesting to you and look at the issue queue. How can you get involved? Is there something you can help with? And helping out that way.
You read my mind because that was going to be my next question is what advice would you give for people that are looking to get involved?
Translating items into other languages is also a huge help because the more and more we can do to polish it, the better it becomes. So, but that's a perfect example of fixing some of the grammar, fixing some of the way people are writing things, I think is helpful, and just making it so that it becomes clearer in the long run.
And that sounds like something people could do for the Docksal project. You were all taking pull requests, right?
Yeah, and we definitely take pull requests. There are plenty of people in our community that are going in there. They're either helping us update to newer versions of PHP, so they're getting in there in the crux of things and helping us with our Docker files, helping us maintain our tools, and they're getting in there in the actual code. There are some people who are helping with grammar and helping out with our proofreading and making sure our docs are up to date. There's definitely we definitely get a lot of help with that. So I think we take help from everybody. Everything from, as I was saying, from grammar and proofreading and helping with docs to even the development time. So definitely want to thank the rest of the Docksal co-maintainers helping. We all sort of do this on our free time. And I think that's how most open source projects work is, the majority of them, they will do things on the free time. And sometimes we can find that when you're busy with work, it's hard to have free time. So I just definitely want to give a shout out to them for the help and the expanding upon it. Also our community, helping out with that, every little bit counts, especially when you're working on a small crew. So I definitely want to give a shout out to them and say thank you for everybody who's contributed in some way.
And I understand also you use GitKraken Client. Anything you want to say about that or advice for people that might be taking a look at it?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing for people who are learning development is, and I'll sort of step back. The biggest thing is for people getting development is version control is a big thing. Version control can be very hard sometimes to get and intimidating to get on board with. So usually I recommend people, hey, if you're getting involved with this, find some sort of client that you like to use. And I think the biggest one I push people to is GitKraken. It's quick. It's definitely a good interface for people to use. It's fast for people to learn how to do things. And it usually becomes the biggest one that people like to use just in general, because it helps them not have to navigate a terminal, and it helps them just to be able to start committing things in a version control system of some sort. So I usually will recommend that. And on my own personal projects, I use it as well, just because it's quick, it's easy. I like the way it works. And I think I've been a fan of it now for at least some years now. So I definitely like it.
Awesome. And what's the best way to get involved in the project? Like, where would they go? What's the URL people should visit?
Yeah, so you can always go to docksal.io. And that will usually should give some way to contact us. The other way is if you go to github.com/Docksal, so our project page, we have a discussion board, and usually we have our discussions open. So there you should be able to get involved in some way, see what other people are seeing, look at our issue queue. I think that's the best place to point people to is our repository, and then that's usually where most of the magic happens.
Thank you very much for being here, Sean. Thank you so much for making Docksal happen, making open source happen, and thanks for using GitKraken and telling the world about it too. We appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me.